R. Kelly is going to jail, people. Let's talk about R. Kelly. So those who don't know, R. Kelly is singer, songwriter. He was huge back in the 90s, early 2000s, and he had a problem with liking young people. Right, I gotta watch what I say because I don't want this thing to get demonetized, which it probably already is, but I don't want to give them any more ammo. He's got some time in jail. Now we all know he served. I don't know if you guys haven't heard the breaking news, but he got 30 years. So this is the Yahoo News talking about it. But one thing I like about this story is that he knew it was coming down the pipe. He knew he was going to jail for a while. So what he did is he started funneling money away. So he didn't have, so when they come down with the fine or any civil penalties, he can get all this money away. So I think it's fascinating how right before he's convicted, he funnels millions of dollars away, and the court is like, no, that we're going to get at that money. So let's see how R. Kelly tried to hide millions of dollars from his victims and from the court system based on his conviction. So check this out. All right, so here we go. R. Kelly funneled millions of dollars from music royalties through a childhood friend right before his blank conviction, prosecutors allege. Here he is getting his 30 years in jail. So R. Kelly sold some of his music rights for $5 million around the time of his trial, prosecutors allege. Prosecutors argue the proceeds should be considered when the judge issued a fine, right? Because he's got millions of dollars, but he's claiming, I'm broke. But they're like, yo, you just sold millions of dollars in royalties. Kelly was sentenced to 30 years in prison, plus a $140,000 fine with restitution to be decided later. So the reason why he was trying to get out of this was because he didn't want to pay restitution to the families, right? And he's like, yo, I can avoid this if I play broke. If I play broke and give away all that money, I can get away with this, right? I don't have to give them anything. But the court's like, hold on. We're going to take into account that money that you just gave away to your childhood friend when it comes to paying back the money in restitution, which I think is the right move to make, right? You're not fooling anybody by giving it away. We all know what's going on. So here's the story. R. Kelly secretly had access to millions of dollars from the sale of some of his music royalties and funneled them through a childhood friend around the same time the trial started. So Assistant U.S. Attorney Elizabeth Giddens disclosed the claims during the singer's sentencing hearing in Brooklyn federal court just before a federal judge handed him a 30-year prison sentence. Kelly was convicted of trafficking charges in September following a 6-week trial. Giddens noted that Kelly, through his R&B music, received revenue from two separate forms of intellectual property rights. One is from the master recordings, which is owned by Sony. So Sony owns his master recordings. The other are rights to compositions of music, which Kelly personally held through 2021, a month before the trial. Sony withheld paying Kelly the royalties from his master recordings as the company deals with judgments related to civil litigation proceedings against him. Now, this is interesting because, so the company Sony, it says here they're holding between $3.5 to $4.5 million worth of royalties, and Kelly owes $7 million in judgment. So Sony's like, we're going to hold them because we don't know how to give them to. If we give them to R. Kelly, that money's gone, but then do we give them to his victims? Who do we give it to? So they're trying to kind of figure that out. So they have this money. So, what's Sony going to do? I don't know. But there's this judgment against him. And I think this is what Amber Heard is concerned about. Because if Johnny now gets that judgment, Johnny's judgment is good, she's going to get paid for Aquaman. So they're probably going to give her, like, yo, hold that money because she owes us, what is it, $10 million bucks. We want that $2 million she's making for Aquaman. So then, Sony, that's Sony, but Warner Brothers may have to hold that money up and decide whether they're going to give it to Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. So they're both, Amber Heard and R. Kelly, are kind of in the same situation where they have judgments against them in this way. Let me move on. And this is the problem with having judgments against you, is that you can get caught out there. The composition and lyrics rights, however, were sold for $5 million in August. Prosecutors did not identify who purchased them. The proceeds, according to prosecutors, were being held by Kelly's childhood friend, Keith Halbert, who received hundreds of thousands of dollars from royalties for those rights, prosecutors said. So he gave the royalties away to his friend, and his friend is making the money, and he's trying to pretend that he has no attachment to them. Oh, that's his money, right? Jennifer Bonjean, Kelly's attorney, said at Wednesday's hearing that she was unfamiliar with the transactions and that the royalties went down dramatically during the trial. I'm not familiar with him being able to get $5 million. So think about this. He's got a $7 million judgment already against him, and it shows you how things work, right? So he's already got $7 million judgment against him. But now Sony's holding either let's say $4 million for him, and then this guy just sold his writing royalties for five, so he's got about $9 million, and he's trying to make it so he's broke. Let me give those to my friends and let Sony deal with this. So to be broke. So after he deals with this, he wants to continue to have this money on the back end. But people he's got caught. He's got caught. I hope all his victims get every single penny they deserve, and obviously this not work. So to make a long story short, this judge essentially said, well, hey, you're not fooling anybody, right? We know you have this money. We know this money is attached to you. You just don't give away millions of dollars in royalties to your childhood friend for nothing, right? So that's what the court said. We're going to take this into account. He also struggled to understand the nature of his contracts because he struggles with literacy. This is he can't read, but he has attorneys who tell it to him. I think he's pretty close to indigent. So his lawyer's saying, I think he's close to indigent. He doesn't have any regular sources of income except for the $9 million that he kind of have on hold. Donnelly issued a $100,000 fine plus statutory $400,000 human trafficking penalty, in addition to 30-year prison sentence, and also scheduled a restitution hearing. So that restitution hearing could be for millions of dollars, right? Restitution to all those victims could be for millions of dollars. So the government is saying, we're going to look into that Sony stuff, and we're going to look into this royalty stuff that you gave to your friend as part of this restitution thing. And R. Kelly and his lawyer saying he's indigent, he has no money. Who you going to believe? Kelly's biological sister on his father's side shook their head as Donnelly ruled on the financial penalties he will face behind bars. I think indigence is probably a stretch, Donnelly said. So the judge is like, yo, I think you calling him indigent when he's got, millions of dollars tied up in Sony, and he just sold $5 million. That's a stretch. That's a stretch for anybody to believe. So the judge is not taking it. So that's what happened. R. Kelly's got convicted, and unfortunately for him, but fortunately for his victims, the money that he's been trying to hide and shuffle around is going to go to his victims, right? He's not indigent. The fact that he's paying this attorney probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the fact that he's got all these millions of dollars gave his friend. He just gave his friend $5 million. How was that indigent, right? Sony's holding $4 million from. How's that, But it shows you how desperate he is to do that.